Hello, and welcome to PoliticOly, a weekly news and politics talk show from a leftist perspective based in Olympia, Washington, which is occupied Medicine Creek Treaty land. It's July 26th, 2020, and this is episode 21, and the revolution continues. Police have escalated violence across America over the past week, including here in Olympia. All eyes have been on Portland, and understandably so. However, the uprising against the Fascist American Empire is present in cities across the country and around the world. This show has a mostly local scope, and I will try to keep it focused because I know folks have a lot more sources of info for national news. This channel is still relatively new. I started it about 4 months ago, and I'm really just still learning how to operate the hardware and software and everything else. An example of that is I tried to do the show live today, and that didn't work out, so apologies for that, but we'll try live again in the future when I get some upgrades, and we'll do pre-recorded for now. But I really appreciate everyone tuning in, the likes and comments, and everyone who shares the videos. This week I've passed 50 subscriber and 1,000 total views benchmarks, so thank you very much, and I hope to continue growing and learning and producing better content. Let's see. So the whole goal of the channel is to uplift the voices, organizations, campaigns, and events of others, including local activists, community leaders, leftist politicians and candidates, event organizers, and even local musicians and artists. If you have a view, a question, reporting from a local event, a flyer for an upcoming event, or if you'd like to contribute to the show, please email me at politicoly@gmail.com. Though, if it's like, don't send me protest footage unless it's like a link to something that you've posted online already. So, you can find me on Twitter at OlyPolitic for show updates only, and at Oli Stewart for my main. I'll be going over some local and regional news, including video from Olympia, upcoming events, some fundraising campaigns you can help contribute to, and I've got to talk a little bit about coronavirus today because it's been a couple weeks and it's too important not to talk about. Let's start here in Olympia, where there continues to be a wide variety of rallies, marches, court support, protests, and other organizing this week. This past week had daily marches and gatherings between City Hall, Sylvester Park, the state capitol, and elsewhere around the city and the county. There was a noise demo in solidarity with prisoners in the Thurston County Jail and the youth jail in Tumwater. Friday was a court support event for Justice for Yvonne, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And so there was just a lot of different events going on all around town, depending on what your availability is and what issue you want to focus on, or area you want to protest, or anything like that. Or the accessibility of the location. There's a variety, so you can find something that works for you. Affinity groups also that we've seen elsewhere, such as in Portland, have begun to self-organize here in Olympia, including Wall of Moms, Dad Brigade, Grand Tifa is one that I saw, Wall of Vets, and so on. So if you're interested in participating in one of these groups, don't hesitate to look for folks organizing in your town, and if you don't find them, put a call out and you may find some folks. So this is a video from a channel called the Super Groomer, who is a resident of Olympia, and this video was from Friday, July 24th on Jefferson Street in downtown Olympia. I will play some clips from the security camera footage and their commentary at the end, and then talk a little bit more about the context.
What looks like spray paint right there, right? But my house has all these rocks, colorful rocks. You could probably see them right here. Not one of these rocks were picked up or moved or thrown on or... Look how nice my yard looks. Wait, I got 1 cup of trash, which I will clean up. They were gassing them from this direction, and they were gassing them from that direction. And then they were forced to go down this street, shoved up against this gate.
And there's a link to that video in the description below, so you can watch the whole thing if you like. And again, that is from a channel called the Super Groomer. So this photo is from yesterday, which I took down on that same street, Jefferson Street, downtown. And I was out running some errands, and I ran into anonymous residents of the neighborhood who were affected by the tear gas going into their apartments. And they were out collecting some of the toxic trash that the police department left all over the road, as you can see here. This is big rubber canisters, and some commenters thought that these were wooden plugs that are in the necks of the canisters there, and they shoot out all these little pepper balls and things. And there were reports of flashbangs and different things, and there's all these pens and different things you can see here, along with a random tiny boot for some reason. Anyway, there was a response here by someone else who, in another tweet, they had said, quote, "This happened literally in front of our home," and that is at Hey Dusty on Twitter. And they said, quote, "It was bad. I don't attend protests because of my disabilities, but I still felt this." And here is my summary of things I had tweeted out that I was just following along from home on Facebook groups and different friends' posts and videos and things like that. And I was just posting about what I was seeing. I said, quote, "Hearing reports from folks in Olympia that there are at least 10 arrests tonight. There's feds in unmarked uniforms coming along with the cops. There's multiple unmarked vehicles, including white SUVs, tear gas deployment right next to residential apartments, some pets affected. I know all eyes are on Portland, but don't forget your town. And Chicago, Minneapolis, D.C., so many cities that need our attention. All those out on the streets tonight, thank you. You're amazing, and I love you." And I had also noted the arrests were allegedly for failure to disperse. One commenter said there was a lawyer present documenting legal violations the cops were making. And I shared some fundraising campaigns going on, and I will link to that in the description below, so you can take a look and support those as well. And commenter at Rabia Miriam said, quote, "People were also affected. Our apartment building was on the same block as tear gas, bombs, rubber bullets, and more. One person had an asthma attack, and multiple people, including myself, suffered headaches, eye stinging, respiratory inflammation, feeling them today still." So that was many people's experience as well from what I was seeing on Facebook. And hopefully there can be some kind of legal recompense for the damage that the city was doing, as well as there was some commentary from someone who I think they were a restaurant manager or something like that, basically saying that the people working in the food service establishment had to all go basically hide in the walk-in cooler for a few minutes to stop coughing from the tear gas that was just entering their business. So anyway, I'm not going to share those posts directly because they were in private groups. I'm just kind of talking generally about things I'm hearing in the community. So, and this, though, is local political organizer Colin Bartlett's response to the situation. Again, this is from Colin Bartlett, and you can see my interview that was recent from Colin Bartlett with PoliticOly in a link in the description below as well. But he says just today, quote, "I'm livid. Friday night, Olympia police used the powers that Cheryl Selby, Jessica Bateman, Jim Cooper, Danny Madrone, Clark Gilman, and Lisa Partially voted to give them to pursue chemical warfare against fellow Olympians. They used a pattern of telling people to disperse, then blocking all exits except one, which they would then fill with a line of flashbang explosives and a wall of tear gas that they then pushed the protesters through. In some cases, they would push people through exits small enough that only one person could pass at a time, forcing them to spend more time with chemical weapons. People who asked to be allowed to exit the protest through safer routes were denied. This was not about dispersal or de-escalation or protecting businesses. This was about punishment, which is not supposed to be within the purview of police officers and would be considered cruel and unusual if applied by the judges whose purview it is. Throughout the night, police chased downtown Olympians into walls of tear gas and flashbangs, even when, as you can see here, they were doing nothing but trying to flee police violence. They did not care if the people they used chemical weapons and explosives against were protesters, folks stuck in their apartments near protesters, or underhoused Olympians caught in the street they herded protesters through. I know of multiple first-hand accounts of them forcing people suffering asthma attacks back into walls of tear gas, using chemical weapons on children, deliberately targeting medics, and knowingly attacking underhoused people who had just been trying to sleep until the police literally force-marched a crowd of protesters into their space. This was the applied policy of a Democrat mayor and Democrat city councilors. This was always what they were going to do with the power you gave them. I'm so disappointed in all you elected representatives who voted to let this happen. You each have blood on your hands."
Oh no! Oh my god.
So I'll pause that one there, and but you can see protesters are just trying to walk, just trying to get out of there, and the police are just doing what they do regardless. So this, though, is a tweet from Olympia Police Department where they call a peaceful protest a riot to justify that behavior. And then they've got these items posted. Here, the quote from OPD. "Tonight, officers responded to a riot involving about 150 people in downtown Olympia. The group vandalized numerous buildings and threw large rocks at officers. 8 people were arrested for various crimes and found to be in possession of armor, gas masks, and bear spray, end quote. And first of all, about the rocks, I've seen maybe a dozen videos of the events of that night, and I never once saw any protester throw anything, much less a rock. And the person in that video that I showed earlier, like I said, there were rocks all over the place, right by the road there where the protesters were, and none of them touched a single one of them. And so the cops say that, but I haven't seen any evidence. And then these items that they confiscated, saying that these are evidence that protesters are violent, these are all defensive items that protesters are using to protect themselves from police violence. And even the pepper spray here can be considered defensive because you've got these right-wing militia guys open carrying rifles and spray and all this stuff and attacking people, and folks have to protect themselves because the cops are on the side of the militia. And there was another example of this just yesterday. A right-wing dude was driving around the block multiple times yelling "All Lives Matter" and things like that out the window at protesters, and then he reportedly stopped, got out, and grabbed someone by the neck and dragged them into the street. And some other protesters nearby came to that person's defense and tried to protect the person who was assaulted by the right-winger. The police arrested only one person in that situation, the protester who helped the victim get free. They are being charged with assault, while the person who committed the original assault was let go by the police without any charges. And they didn't even arraign him, so we don't have a name for who that person was. But the community has identified them, and they may be connected to one of the right-wing militias. I don't know. So I'll report about that if I hear more info. But basically, just the point is that all of these items are defensive. And so the police aren't making the point that they think they're making. They are just showing, evidence that people feel like they have to defend themselves from police brutality. So it's not really, doesn't make the point they think they're making. So anyway, at Mr. Olmos on Twitter, and that's Sergio Olmos, and this is his video of Peter Buck, and I'll just play the video because it speaks for itself here.
Tell me why you're out here.
I'm coming from Olympia, Washington, so I drove down because I'm aghast at the federal troops, or whatever the federal people are. Such a violation of the Constitution. Black Lives Matter I've been involved in, but I'm here to visit with the troops.
Is this your first night?
It is my first night.
And I noticed you brought a leaf blower.
So that was an Olympia grandpa representing down in Portland. So thanks to Peter Buck and everyone else contributing, because really folks from Olympia always go up and down to Seattle, to Portland, and elsewhere and support actions all over the region. So this was just wanted to highlight a example of that. Now, before we move on from Olympia, I just wanted to highlight this news page here called Jolt, or the Journal of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. I had just come across this, and apparently it was created maybe a couple of months ago. And so it's a new publication, and if you remember the little paper that you would see around town called Coffee News, well, apparently the guy who produced that created this new online local journalism page called Jolt, along with some other folks. And I just, I don't know too much about it, so I'm just sharing this so you can be aware of it and take a look and, come to a conclusion for yourself about it. But I did want to just, let's see, so they've got, down in the local politics section, they've got some information here on, quote, Racial Justice Town Hall Highlights Race in the Justice System, an article by Andrew Oslin. You've got Olympia to Bring Back Police Auditor Program, an article by Prachi Gohil, and other articles. So anyway, take a look at that, and I will see about sharing some more of their work in the future. They've got Contribute Your News. You can contribute opinion pieces and things like that. And let's see if I can find their about page. But anyway, basically they do have a whole bunch of interesting folks working on this, including Meta Hogan, who was a former Green Party candidate for Olympia mayor, and oh, there it is. And there is reporters and other folks that are actually have a pretty long track record of journalism in Olympia. Janine Gates, who wrote Little Hollywood blog, and Bob Jacobs, former mayor. I don't see any black contributors here at a first glance. So, but anyway, so just sharing that as a potential source of local news that you can check out, and again, make a decision or judgment of its for yourself. So moving up to Seattle, I just wanted to read this comment by Shama Sawant. They write, quote, "Despite the ban, our movement won. A federal judge has shamefully ruled Seattle police can continue to use weapons like tear gas and blast balls. It's particularly chilling. This comes in tandem with Trump's decision to send Border Patrol agents like an occupying army into Seattle." End quote. And I think that's relevant because there's all this discussion about the Olympia City Council trying to ban or not ban the crowd control munitions by the police, but then, you know, that may just get overturned anyway. So, you know, in some cases we are just not going to get justice in an injustice system. We still have to fight for these wins and these, you know, fight these legal battles, even though the legal system is biased there in favor of authoritarianism. But again, so local efforts at times can just be overturned anyway, so we need to be aware of that and be putting pressure on multiple levels. The city council needs to be pressured, and I would just mention real quick that in Olympia we need to always remember that we have the unelected city manager as our police commissioner, not our mayor. They have more power than the city council with regard to the police and accountability, and the city manager is Jay Burney at the moment, but the point is that we need to pressure city councilors and city council candidates to have a system where the person in charge of the police department is an elected position long term. Something to keep in mind. So this is a fundraiser just recently created. I think it was even created today. Yeah, today by Seattle Black Lives Matter organization, and it's a fundraiser for getting protective gear for Seattle and Portland protesters, as you can see here. And this group was formed in 2014, their original Seattle Black Lives Matter group. So you can find the link to that below if you want to contribute to that effort. Moving on, this is a article, or no, here we've got the we've got an ad here that the Johnny Mead campaign put out, and I've done an interview with Johnny Mead, which I'll link to below as well, but this is just an ad I wanted to share with you from his campaign.
neighbor. I'm Johnny Mead, your candidate for state legislature. We currently live in a land of make-believe, where billion-dollar corporations like Amazon and Boeing enjoy huge tax breaks, while working families are expected to fund essential programs and services like K-12 education and healthcare. Let's take a trip to the land of not-so-make-believe. Here in Washington, we're facing a pandemic that has revealed the perilous day-to-day conditions that working families face. Many are working longer hours for lower wages, and thousands are now without a job and wondering how they're going to make ends meet, pay for childcare, and keep a roof over their heads. And while our state constitution requires that we fully fund K-12 education, the legislature has not made it clear how we will maintain an equitable and safe learning environment for our children once they return to the classroom. That's why I'm proposing a working class bailout, including guarantees for housing, green jobs, and equitable K-12 education with public broadband, fully funded with a state constitutional amendment to allow corporations to pay their fair share. All of this and more is possible. We don't have to continue to live in the land of make-believe.
And I just wanted to share that because I thought it was a clever ad there by a local candidate. So this is an article in Northwest Public Broadcasting, or NPR here, by Enrique Perez de la Rosa, titled Washington Supreme Court reverses itself in century-old case, affirms Yakima Nation treaty rights. This is an article from July 10th, but I just became aware of it here, so I'm going to share it with you. Quote, the Washington State Supreme Court reversed a century-old ruling Friday against a Yakima Nation tribal member for fishing outside the reservation. The 1916 ruling mandated criminal charges against Alec Tawisnut for fishing outside the Yakima Reservation on traditional fishing grounds, a right assured by the Yakima's Treaty of 1855 with the federal government. He was arrested near Prosser for using a gaff hook, a traditional way of fishing. The 1916 ruling also characterized Native peoples as a dangerous child who squandered vast areas of fertile land before our eyes. On Friday, current state Supreme Court justices unanimously called the past ruling racist and unjust in a new order read by Raquel Montoya Lewis, the court's first Native American justice. This, quote, this court characterized the Native people of this nation as a dangerous child who squandered vast areas of fertile land before our eyes. Today, we take the opportunity presented to us by the descendants of Mr. Tawisnut to repudiate this case, its language, its conclusions, and its mischaracterization of the Yakima people, Montoya Lewis said. And I'll link to this below so you can read the rest of the article. But big case in treaty rights, just wanted to share with you there. This is a support fund for local black elder Miss Clark, and this is organized by some folks in the Showing Up for Racial Justice Olympia group for housing support. So you can take a look at the link for that below if you can contribute. This one is again with this one is from Olympia Showing Up for Racial Justice. This one is a fundraiser they are sharing for Media Island International, quote, which is home to the Women of Color in Leadership and KOWA 106.5 community radio station. All Black Woman, led by Shauna Hawk, is raising funds to be able to replace their unstable roof and install solar panels so they can achieve long-term sustainability and cut costs so more money can go towards their activism and community work. Please donate and share. And that fundraiser is just about a little past a quarter of the way there. So need your support if you can. Support a local community organization. This is an article in the Guardian. About, the title is Seattle Media Must Provide Protest Photos to Police, Judge Rules. Judge says images are critical for investigations, but newspaper argues move puts independence and reporters' safety at risk. And this is an Associated Press article. And it says, quote, a judge has ordered 5 Seattle news outlets to comply with a subpoena and give the Seattle Police Department unpublished videos and photos from a 30 May racial justice protest. The King County Superior Court Judge Nelson Lee sided with the city's police department, ruling that its subpoena was enforceable, the Seattle Times reported. Lee found that the photos and videos were critical for an investigation into the alleged arson of police vehicles and theft of police guns. Lee said the news organizations were not protected by a Washington state shield law that in many circumstances stops authorities from obtaining reporters' unpublished materials. And the article goes on, and so you can check out the link and read the rest of it. But the point here is just be extremely careful if you are recording protests. For myself personally, this kind of thing is part of why, for me, I'm going to be wanting to record events that are like family-friendly, daytime things, speakers, and rallies, and organized marches, and things like that. But if there's any kind of confrontation with police, then that's not something that I am going to live stream or be wanting to have any media of, because as it says here, even if you don't post it, the police can still come after you for it. And they are targeting all kinds of media and journalists and things. And, if they're targeting the Seattle Times, which has a whole, brigade of lawyers, I'm sure, they will certainly come after you and me. So we need to be extremely careful. And it is important to be a cop watcher and to record interactions so that cases can be thrown out in court later if the police lie, things like that. But at the same time, just you need to be aware of what you're doing and take that extremely seriously. And for my part, that is not not something within the purview of this show at this time. So that just goes to show that these kind of actions are having their intended purpose, which is suppressing free speech. And that is really the point, is they want to scare folks into not recording things, and even though we have a constitutional right to do so, and it in many cases succeeds. And so that's part of why I say we live in a police state, right? Moving on to another article I wanted to share here. This one's from The Intercept, and it's titled "The Congressional Progressive Caucus is Trying Something New, Winning Primaries." And this is by Ryan Grimm and Aida Chavez from July 23rd. Quote, "The Congressional Progressive Caucus, fresh off a first in its history win in a New York primary, is turning next to an open seat in Washington state. The CPC, founded in 1991 to organize progressives within the House Democratic Caucus, has never previously been an electoral powerhouse, with its Political Action Committee exerting little influence by contributing $5,000 to candidates it supported. In 2018, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee used its considerable weight to help centrist candidates beat progressives in open primaries. The CPC stayed mostly on the sidelines. In New York this year, the CPC finally got into the game and got a major return on its investment. In a race to replace outgoing Rep. Nidalawi, the CPC set up an independent expenditure arm and could spend nearly $200,000 helping Mondaire Jones clinch the nomination against a field of better-funded, more corporate-friendly candidates. I'll move along here. The CPC is throwing its weight behind State Rep Beth Dolio, who backed CPC co-chair Pramila Jayapal during her first run for Congress in 2016 in an open primary and has been her ally since. Out of a field of 19 Democrats in the primary in Washington's 10th Congressional District, a solidly blue district that includes Olympia and the part of Tacoma, Dolio is one of 3 viable candidates. Side note here that they just totally throw Josh Collins under the bus there as not calling him a viable candidate. I continue, quote, "The race was briefly on social media radar thanks to an autistic Democratic Socialist candidate, truck driver Josh Collins, known on Twitter as Joshua for Congress. He used popular meme formats to try to spread his left-wing message and largely ran his campaign online. He also cultivated a large following on TikTok and urged these followers to join his Discord server, a chat platform used primarily by gamers, campaign strategies that earned the 26-year-old candidate media coverage in several major outlets. But after he disappeared from Twitter on Instagram for a day in May without explanation, some of his supporters began to turn on him. Danny Scholl, Colin's communication and political director, attempted to shut down the speculation and said the nonstop notifications make it nearly impossible for him to unplug and sleep, so he deactivated his profiles to get some rest. Though he was originally running as a Democrat, he dropped the affiliation and is now running under the banner of the Essential Workers Party. In June, Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont, endorsed Dolio, dealing a mortal blow to Colin's campaign. In the last quarter, which ended on June 30th, Collins raised just $22,500 and has largely receded from visibility. That leaves Dolio, State Rep Christine Reeves, and former Tacoma Mayor Marilyn Strickland. Strickland would be the first black person to represent Washington State in Congress, as would Reeves, who is both black and Latina, but neither has put up the kind of record that would excite national progressives. Instead, the CPC just launched $140,000 worth of TV ads in support of Dolio's campaign, which supports Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. And it goes on, and this is kind of a long article, so I'll leave that to you to go ahead and follow the link and finish that. But basically, I just want to say that in let's see, so. I have all kinds of issues with this article. So, first of all, they go on and talk about all kind of identity politics labels for the candidates, and that's just not what we need to focus on in primaries. We need to be finding candidates who hold our values and our policies and fight the powers that be, which include the Democratic Party, right, in the primaries. And so basically when someone stops running as a Democrat and runs as another party or independent, everyone just, all these media people like this just stop calling them viable and just say that they're done for. And what we have to do is support candidates who are willing to challenge the Democratic Party so that they can no longer make that case and dismiss people in that way. And so they mention let's see, and I guess basically all I'll say is that is just that the primary is for when we need to be focused on finding and supporting candidates who will fight for a socialist revolution, and Joshua Collins is that, and Beth Dolio's not. And so that's where I'm at for the primary. I maintain my endorsement of Josh Collins, and we can continue this conversation after the primary when our options are more limited. So now I'd like to at least talk a little bit about coronavirus, COVID-19. I feel like I should really have more focus on this, and so I'd like to gather more information and discussion and links for next week's show about it. And so if you've got an opinion, a question, or a link that could be on the show next week, please post it in the comments. This right here is a photo by Olympian reporter Sarah Gensler of some artwork in Olympia, a spray-painted crow here shouting, "Wear your mask," that I just thought was nice. So, but this next page here is the Washington State data dashboard from the State Department of Health. And as you can see, we've had almost 52,000 cases here in Washington now, with 5,341 hospitalizations, 1,494 deaths, 2.9% of deaths per confirmed cases, and with our percent positive of tests at 5.7%, which is fairly high, much higher than what we want. And what that shows is that, yes, we've been testing more people, but instead of finding a few people that have it and a whole bunch more people that don't, and this percent positive goes down, what we found is a lot of people that weren't getting tested before do have it, and that percent positive has stayed high. So that is an alarming, situation here in Washington State, and so we have to keep that in mind, that this percent of deaths is still very high, and this percent positive of total tests is also very high, and that shows that we have a lot of work to do on this. You can see this graph where this was the first wave here in March and April, and then we started to shut down and got the cases to go down a little bit, but not enough, and then we started opening back up. Here goes to June and July, and now we are in this second wave, if you'll call it, and the cases are just really high right now. And so this graph sort of predicts this drop-off in the future of cases, but that is only going to be the case, I think, if we increase the shutdowns, and because obviously what we have to remember when we look at these graphs, and this is what I think a lot of people are missing, is that the situation today is almost twice as bad as it was in March and April when we went into shutdown, and so in Washington State. And so we have to be taking this more seriously. Whatever you were doing in March and April to shut down, we should be doing that and more, not less, where we have these phases of opening up, and I'm hearing, folks going camping and all these things, and I get it. It sucks being trapped, especially as parents, and being on this long shutdown process, and I certainly don't judge folks for doing a little bit of this or that as carefully as they can, but the issue is a lot of folks are doing things that are not necessary, and they are doing things that are basically just not understanding the situation that we're seeing in this graph, right? And so that's what we just need to be aware of and spread this information. And when people say it's not a big deal and we should open up further, point it out that we are currently in our worst place that we have been with regard to this virus all year right now. So this is not the time to be opening up. This is the time to be talking about what else we can do to respond more seriously. And this is a letter from Thurston County Health Officer Demiana Abdelmalek, and from July 24th. I'll quote here, "Hello, Thurston County. We are definitely seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases in Thurston County. The most common ways people are being infected is through travel, social gatherings, and from other people within their household. Now is the time to be physically distant but socially connected. I've been using video chats to stay connected with friends and family. I hope you are all remembering to wear a face covering, practice physical distancing, cover your cough, and wash your hands to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Together we can reduce the cases of COVID-19 in our county. And I really think people should, take these things seriously. He continues, quote, yesterday, Governor Inslee announced new measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Face coverings are now required in all common spaces like elevators, university housing, hotels and motels, and congregate settings. The changes to the Safe Start plan affect restaurants and bars, weddings and funerals, fitness centers, and entertainment regulations. Restaurants and bars cannot serve alcohol after 10 p.m. Indoor seating is limited to no more than 5 people from the same household. Indoor capacity is limited to 50%. Game areas must close, and bars are outdoor service only. Weddings and funerals can proceed with ceremonies at a maximum of 30 people or 20% capacity, whichever is fewer. And it continues here. I also wanted to bring up the point here that the COVID-19 pandemic has sparked a severe shortage in our national blood supply. I recently went down to Northwest Blood Works down there on East Side Street downtown and donated. They make it really easy. It's by appointment only. You go on the webpage and sign up, and so they distance, people going in there, and they have plenty of space, and it's very, sanitary and everything. So if you can donate blood, please consider doing so. And I will link below so you can read the rest of this letter as well. And this post is some of my thoughts after watching Governor Inslee's recent announcement. I had said I'm confused by the Washington COVID policy update. They say masks are now required in elevators and hallways. They weren't already? WTF? And I thought that was weird. Like, why would people not be wearing masks in elevators right now? That's just wow. So yeah, please wear your masks. Indoor restaurants can only sit with household members, and my thought was, how could that possibly be enforced? I feel like people who believe in science and care about these things are going to just stay home. And then right-wingers and anti-maskers and MAGA people are just going to fill the restaurants, and they're just going to lie, because how do you enforce that, right? If you go up and say something, it's just, well, we're household members. And, what are you going to say? So that just seems like it puts restaurant staff in a horrible position at risk. So concerned about that. I think it's good that indoor bar service is closed. The gyms reducing capacity, I think, is good. They should probably just close, but whatever. But the schools are going to open, and Inslee hasn't made an announcement on that, and it's coming up here in a few weeks. And so parents are all scrambling to figure out, do I sign up for the online learning? Are we doing homeschooling? Are the schools opening? They say they're opening, but are they really going to open? Some people say don't worry about it. They're not even going to open, so don't worry about it. But it's just very confusing, and it's really just not good to me that the governor and the state government isn't being clear on their plan with the schools, and putting that all on us to figure it out. So anyway, basically just their approach just seems kind of confusing and piecemeal instead of very clear and unified and straightforward, as I think it should be. So candidate Johnny Meade comments, inconsistent guidance means they aren't to blame for rising cases. They can just point to the people who broke the rules by checks notes, being forced to go out and work service industry jobs to pay their inflated housing costs in a pandemic. So yeah, I think Inslee's making too many political calculations instead of being as honest as possible. Also, I think a big part of this is that Inslee and the rest of the Washington state politicians don't want to put up any big funding or anything, so they can't be bothered to tax the ridiculously wealthy billionaires and their corporations in our state in order to do what the people need. And you've seen in the news over this pandemic, while there's 50 million Americans unemployed, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these tech billionaires are just raking in the billions, and a lot of them live right here in our state, and our politicians just won't do anything about it. And so it's another point where I just have no faith in Democrat Party to address that kind of an issue, because they've shown that they just won't do it, and they just stop short of challenging the oligarchy. And we need politicians who will figure out what is the best course of action and then take it, regardless of what oligarch stands in the way. So that's why I've continued to focus on supporting socialist and non-democratic candidates primarily, especially in the primary. Let's do this one first. So this is one of the events. Remember, I was talking earlier about there's been so many different types of events and rallies around town, and no matter what your interest is, you can find one that works for you. The one that has happened is the Olympia Witches March, and they are planning another one coming up. So if that's something you're interested in, you can take a look at the link. That is on Sunday, August 30th. And there is also an upcoming event here on August 13th, 4 to 9 p.m. called Unite Our Cities. And this is, quote, "Please join us as Olympia and Lacey come together for Unite Our Cities next March. We're heading back to Martin/Marvin and marching to Slater-Kinney. This will be exactly 5 months after Breonna Taylor was murdered. Wear masks, make signs, and let's get ready to demand justice for her. Let's show the county again that they cannot wait us out." So, shout out to the organizers, and I will link as many upcoming events as I can on my Twitter page at Oli Stewart, so you can follow me on there for more upcoming event updates. And if you've got one coming up that you want to promote on the show, feel free to reach out to me, and I will help promote your event. Let's see. Actually, let's do this. And so finally, I just want to remind everyone that the Washington primary is on right now, and the ballots are due August 4th. All candidates welcome last-minute contributions and help with get out the vote phone banking and sign waving. And look back at the catalog of previous videos on this channel for more information, because I've done interviews with as many local candidates as I could do, and I've got a Thurston County Socialist Voters Guide video up which I will link below. And I would love to continue interviewing candidates. If you would like to be on the show, feel free to let me know and we can get an interview set up. And so anyway, that's it for today. It's just kind of a short show. I don't really have a feature or an interview prepared today. So I'd love to hear your takes on the primary, the revolution, Black Lives Matter, any links to fundraisers, upcoming events I could share, anything like that. I tried to go live today and it didn't work out due to hardware and software issues, so I think I'll need to keep doing pre-recorded shows for now, but I will get back to next weekend having it up at 1 o'clock. I was just thrown off a little today, so my apologies for that. And appreciate everyone who did try to tune in live. I will revisit doing that in the future. So thanks everyone for your support, and remember, I'd love to collaborate with others on the left, so feel free to reach out to me. And thank you to everyone out on the streets and everyone else supporting the movement in your own way. Love and peace to you all, and see you next week.